If you're a fan of magic, witches, demons, crazy adventures along with cartoons, well, this video is just for you, my friend. The Owl House. This is a show that I've recently been binge watching, and honestly, right off the bat, I can say I love this show. Now, I had heard about the Owl House way back when it first released, but at the time, I was not really interested at being committed to watch any cartoon series after Star vs. the Force of Evil, which I gotta say the ending for that show did not leave me satisfied. But over time, there'd be clips and video reviews on my YouTube recommended tab of the show, so I decided to give it a chance. And I'm honestly glad I did. It's been a while since I felt disconnected to a cartoon show. The last cartoon show that I can say with full confidence that I felt disconnected to was Gravity Falls. But the plot and story for the show feels a little bit much more better. I can see now why this show is very popular on Disney Channel. I mean, you could even call it one of the big three. The big three including shows like Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and The Owl House. Tell me I'm wrong. As of right now, the show only has 2 seasons with the third one already greenlighted. And within these 2 seasons of The Owl House, there has been this crazy story that's being folded over time. Stuff like magic, witches, and curses. You know, those type of stuff. But overall, there's this much more darker story in play. With these crazy fun time adventures, there is this bigger story in The Owl House. And over time, bit by bit, that bigger story starts to unfold. Which is probably the reason why the show is doing so well. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to take a much more deeper dive into the story of The Owl House and why it managed to do so well. Along with some controversies the show has gotten over the time it aired, along with giving you guys a better understanding of what The Owl House is and why I personally liked it. So I hope you guys have brought some sort of snacks because this video is going to be a long one, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get right into the video. Now, for starters, I should probably mention that I was never really a magic fanatic. The only magic game I ever played was Wizard 101, and it took me years to finally watch the Harry Potter films. And basically, I was never big on things that involved magic, wizards, or witches. Based on the stuff I had seen at the time, most shows or films involve someone special attending some magic school to learn magic, and that's about it. You can see now why I was holding off watching The Owl House, because based on clips and images I had seen at the time, it looked like every other show that I'd seen as a kid that involves magic. But over time you learn to not judge a book by its cover, and I ended up watching it. And based on the first few episodes, my expectation for this show is just what I pictured it to be. Same old magic show. The story talks about a girl named Luz who's not your ordinary girl. She's pretty weird and does not really fit in anywhere. Her mom wants to take her to this summer camp where she can get this reality check that her overactive imagination is not really going to get her anywhere. But on the day that she's supposed to go to the camp, an owl ends up taking her things and she follows the owl to this abandoned house out in the forest. She ends up walking through this door that takes her to another world filled with magic, witches, curses, and demons. A strange looking lady by the name of Ida gives her the runaround about how things work in this realm, explaining that they are on the lands of the Boiling Isles. Luz wants to go home, so Ida makes a deal with her. If she can do something for her, she can take her back home. We then get introduced to some of the supporting characters of the show. Hootie, the long-necked owl that's pretty much the security for Ida's house, Owl House, and King, the little demon who claims to be the king of demons. Now, King is actually voiced by Alex Hirsch, and if that name sounds familiar, he's actually the creator of Gravity Falls, and he actually voices some characters in his show. One voices that he uses in Gravity Falls is the same voice tone he uses to voice King in The Owl House. And the voices he used is Bill Cipher, a crazy one-eyed triangle demon that wants nothing but to make deals and pure destruction. So every time I hear King's voice, all I see is Bill. I mean, listen to this.
Oh, Gravity Falls, it is good to be back!
You're a free ride to the best buffet in town! Yeah. The trash cans here are filled with half-eaten gold!
Okay, but if anyone asks, you don't know me.
Have a wonderful school day, person I don't know!
Do you see? Anyway, Luz ends up getting a crown that was taken away from King, and that's her end of the bargain done. So Ida opens the door to the human realm, but Luz changes her mind and wants to stay with Ida and become a witch like her. Just for the summer though. Ida agrees and the story truly begins. Now, based on these few episodes of the show, there's nothing really big that happens. There's nothing that really captivates me to watch this cartoon. And honestly, that's how a lot of shows are. Nothing major happens in the first few episodes of the show. It's more towards the introduction of the characters and the overall plots. And that's basically what the show does. Over time, we get introduced to other supporting characters of the show that each play a pretty big role. Luz ends up making friends at this magic school, and she attends to learn more about magic. Since Luz is a human, she can't do magic like everyone else, so she has to make this sort of picto magic where she draws symbols on papers and taps it to summon the spell she wants, rather than just using her hands like everyone else. You see, in this world, there's this thing called the covenant system, where you can only use one type of spell and magic based on the coven you join. Since Luz wants to learn every type of magic, she decides not to join a coven. Now, in scenarios like this, I'm not really a big fan of. Because she's human and came from another world, she sort of gets this special treatment, like she's some sort of chosen one. At first I thought she was the only one that wanted to learn different type of magic, but thankfully the creator read my mind, and it turns out there are other people who want to do the same thing as her. Not making her rather special as in a chosen one way, but rather special in the way as the fact that she's different like these other people. And that's something I personally enjoy. Along the story of the Owl House, there's this certain pattern that the show follows like other shows and cartoons, where along these first few episodes of the show, we get introduced to her group of friends, her school rival, and the actual bad guy of the first season. Now, the reason of there being a bad guy of the show is particularly to the reason that does not involve Luz, but a reason that happened before she came into play of the story. Now, in episode 5 of the Owl House, we get told that Ida has a curse that turns her into some sort of owl beast. It's basically a form of wild magic. Now, Ida can't control this curse of hers, so she has to take this potion called Elixir once a day to make sure the beast does not come out. She does not know how she got the curse, but she would have these memories that get shown to us of the person responsible for the curse. The thing is, it's not a clear picture, but rather some shadowy figure. This was the first step in the right direction of the story. On one side, we have Luz's story involving her wanting to become a witch, and then there's secondary story that has a much more darker story in tell. The fact is, there's this grand mystery involved in the Owl House, and that's something I really enjoyed, and I wish it did more of this. Sadly, this side of the story was not really talked as much as I wished. The only time the curse would be talked about is when Ida would get turned into this beast, which doesn't really happen as often as I thought. Anyway, the bad guy for this season ends up being Ida's sister Lilith. She's part of the Emperor's Covenant, which is one of the highest ranking covenant in the covenant system, because you would be directly serving the Emperor. He's the one that created the covenant system and kind of rules the land. He says that all wild magic is bad, and he's basically a prophet. He and he alone can talk to this thing called the Titan, which is pretty much this realm's god. Anyway, Lilith is tasked to take in Ida so she can join the Emperor's Covenant. Ida is not down with this, so time after time Lilith will try and bring Ida in to the Emperor, but she fails quite a lot. The reason Lilith is so determined to bring in her sister is because the Emperor promised if that she can bring her in and make her join the Emperor's Covenant, he will break Ida's curse. Now, remember when I said the Emperor is not a fan of wild magic? Well, Ida's beast form is a form of wild magic, so obviously he won't help her but rather control her or try to get rid of her. Since Lilith can't see this though, they battle it out. Like a lot. It's when they have their final battle that the truth of how Ida got her curse comes out. It turns out it was Lilith that cursed Ida. She was the shadowy figure that Ida keeps seeing in her dreams. Now Lilith ends up helping Ida when she realizes that the Emperor lied and actually wants to turn Ida to stone. Now Lilith is not really a bad guy. There were certain times where Lilith actually had fun with Ida. She thought what she was doing was right, but in the end she was just making so many mistakes. The good thing is the two are cool now. The fact that there was a mystery of Ida's curse is what made the show so good on the mystery side. And that's something I personally loved about the show. Not to mention that Lilith was not really the main bad guy of the show, she was more of a lackey, a cover-up for the real enemy of the show, the Emperor, which is pretty much the main protagonist for season 2, which honestly makes sense. Now, I've talked so much about Ida's story that I forgot to mention Luz's side of the story. I mean, she's the main character after all. Now, with Luz's story, there's an involvement of crazy school adventures. She has her group of friends, which I have to mention along with her rival. Their friends are Gus Porter and Willow Park, and they are not exactly popular in the school. This is pretty much the life of a teen if a teen was in a world of magic. The rival character of the show is Amity, and she's kind of an a-hole the first half of the season. Her and Willow used to be friends, but ended up stopped hanging out with each other because Amity's parents did not allow her to hang out with weak people. So yeah, they hated each other over time, but we got to see the other side of Amity. Among this brute looking personality, there's actually a really nice person. And of course, Luz being Luz, she tries to befriend Amity. And over time, she slowly but stealthily becomes a part of Luz's friend group. Now, one side that I liked about Luz is that she's very open to people. She does not really see one side of a coin, but rather both. Not to mention, she's really weird, which as a weird person, I really enjoy. Each character has something different and special about them, and I mean that literally. Seeing how covens are a thing and people can only use one spell, Willow can make plants grow, Gus can make illusions, and Amity can make abominations, which are these big purple creatures that can do whatever you want. The fact is that everyone has a place, and that's really amazing. A lot of side characters in shows don't really get a chance to shine in cartoons, but in this show everyone has something to do and I really enjoy it. Now, I really like the show so far, but I think my favorite episode has to be Season 1 Episode 16, Enchanting Grom Fight. The story for this episode is basically about Hexfield, the match school that Luz attends, having basically their weird version of prom, except in this world it's called Grom, and when you become Grom Queen, you have to defeat a beast called Grom that lives in the bottom of the school. The thing about Grom is that the creature can transform to your darkest fear, and it turns out that this year's Grom Queen is Amity. Now, Amity is cool with Luz, Willow, and Gus at this point of the story, so Luz ends up deciding to take her place. Around this time, Luz has been wanting to tell her mother the truth of where she really has been, because as far as Luz's mom knows, Luz is in summer camp. But Luz can't tell her the truth because, well, how do you tell your parents you're in another realm, studying to become a witch in a world filled with magic, demons, and curses, and that you could leave at any time if you really wanted to, but instead of coming home, you decide to stay in this world? It would be a very weird text to send to your mom. Not to mention, Luz has been lying to her this whole time. The night of Grom happens and Luz battles Grom, but during Grom's final phase, he turns into Luz's greatest fear. And that is her mom. You see, Luz has been lying to her mom for so long that she feels a sense of guilt. Not to mention, she will not know how her mom would react if she told her the truth, so the sense of guilt of lying to her mom for this long is her greatest fear. She ends up running away from Grom until she comes on this cliff side. Just then, Amity comes to help Luz, and then Grom transforms into Amity's greatest fear, which is this purple human-like figure that rips up Amity's note that she has. It turns out that note that Grom ripped was an invitation to Luz, asking if she would be her partner for Grom. Her greatest fear was being rejected by Luz. Luz ends up accepting the feelings that Amity has, and they have their dance. I don't know what it is about this scene, but it just feels right. The animation, the music, the overall feel of this scene is just amazing, and I honestly just love it. It's also the iconic scene that started the whole Luminity ship romance. There's that, which is also good. The world of Owl House is a pretty big world filled with so many adventure ideas and potentials. It's filled with amazing beasts and demons, along with some memorable locations that I'll honestly be remembering forever. I mean, the Boiling Isles is literally a Bones of Dead Titan, which is kinda crazy. But among all this creativity, I feel like the bad guys are probably one of the best aspects of the stories. As I'm recording this, the latest episode of the show is Season 2, Episode 16, and some hidden lore that people have been questioning is slowly starting to be revealed. I talked about how Lilith was sort of the main villain for Season 1, with Season 2 that's the Emperor. Now with the Emperor in play as the main villain for Season 2, I feel like things are starting to get a bit crazy. There has always been this behind the scenes story that involves the Emperor in the show. He's always been this behind the scene villain, but slowly but steadily we learn more and more about this guy's character. Once again, I will be spoiling some stuff, so please click away if you haven't seen the show. Now at the beginning, his character was only talked about when it comes to talking about the Covenant system and the Emperor's Coven. It would just be about the basic info that everyone knew. He ruled the land, created the Covenant system, and can talk to the Titan. And that was about it. There was also the fact that Ida was not a fan of the Emperor, seeing how he was set on destroying her because, well, of her wild witch ways. But other than that, there was nothing else that was said about the guy. Just the basic info that was said over and over and over. Now here's the thing when you're creating a character, especially if this character has some sort of grand role in the present time of the show or the near future. You gotta build the character up, but not in the way you're thinking of. Based on how the first season of the show was going, it was clear that the grand role of the Emperor was going to be more known in the second season, seeing how us, the audience, only got to see him twice, and both of them were in the finale 2 episodes of season 1. But even in those 2 episodes, there was a lot of info that I learned. One was the fact that the guy wanted to go to the human realm for some reason, and 2, the dude was sick, so he drains the lives of palismen, which are magic creatures that turn into this magic staffs. This guy was just straight up evil. Anyway, it was after season 1 that we get a much more clear idea of who this guy truly is. You see, when you're creating a villain, especially the main one, keep as much info on the character as much as you can. You see, what the Owl House does is that the info that the people of the Boiling Isles know is basic stuff I mentioned earlier. Him being a ruler, talking to the Titan, and him creating the Covenant system. That info that was out there about the Emperor was all the people really knew about the guy. Anytime the Emperor would be mentioned or talked about, that basic info would loop. And the fact that this guy is a villain makes things even better because people such as myself would be asking questions to the fact of who this guy truly is. Asking questions after question after question after question, just wondering the guy's true intention of him being the villain. Dinah Terrence, the creator of the show, definitely knows how to make villains correctly, just looking at the transition from Lilith being the bad guy to the Emperor. And it looks like there's going to be someone else that also has this grand role as the villain, either in season 2 or possibly season 3, just based on the latest episode shown. There seems to be another villain that will play a big role. This person is called the Collector, and over the span of season 2, his name has been said maybe once or twice in the show. He's not human or some sort of regular creature of the Boiling Isle, but rather some strange looking creature that can merge and shape-shift into whatever he wants, but not in the way you guys are thinking, like Martian Manhunter, aka the Green Martian. The villain characters in the show are done very well, and I hope to see more of villains in the near future that play a grand role similar to the Emperor, seeing how the Emperor is written really well done and plays a perfect role as the villain, which I personally enjoy. Now, I've talked about the story and how the characters are written. I've even talked about characters like Ida, Lilith, Luth, Amity, and the Emperor, along with how villains should be written up. I think I should talk about one last character, and this character plays somewhat of a big role in the show, and he's honestly one of my favorite characters. Hootie!
Hi, Luz! Ow! I'm just wishing you a good morning. Jeez, Hoot! Ow! Oh, Luz, you have a guest.
Hootie, no touching. Worst nightmare.
You want to hear my worst nightmare?
Yeah, no, he's not my favorite character. It's kind of annoying. I will say the creative idea of Hootie is very cool. A long-necked owl sounds really neat, and I for one could not think of that idea as a character in a show. But why does he have to be so goddamn annoying? Like, his voice is so high-pitched for no reason. And the fact is, when he has screen time as for long periods of time, or even the fact when an episode is dedicated to Hootie, I physically have headaches just listening to his voice. I can't listen to the guy's voice at all. No, the character that I really want to talk about is King. King, the little demon that says he's the king of demons, not to mention his voice is the Bill Cipher. His character is really fun, and I like how lively they decided to make him. The thing about King is that we didn't really get any backstory with him. Even though he was always involved in an episode, going on adventures and having much more screen time than Hootie, it was already known that he is an important character in the show. Yet over time, the old backstory that was given was him saying that he was the king of demons and he used to rule all until his crown of power was taken away from him and he turned into this little cute furball. Now, if there's anything that you guys have learned from the show, or rather this video, is that when some character has to repeat a loop of information, it most likely means the character has some grand role, or in this case, some grand backstory. It wasn't until season 2 that we get the full story of how King's backstory was shown. It turns out he wasn't even the king of demons. As a matter of fact, he wasn't a king of anything. It turns out it was a thing that him and Ida made up when he was little. telling stories that he was the king of demons. Over time, this story slowly becomes a reality in King's head, and that's how he got the idea of him being the king of demons. Now, this moment kind of crushed me. All this time, this character had this spark and confidence with him acknowledging the fact that he was the king of demons. But now that he learned that that was all a lie, I was honestly scared that he was going to change. But thankfully, his story was not at an end, and it turns out he has a dad out there looking for him. Not to mention there is a much more to King's backstory than just this. But for now, it's unknown and we have to wait until the rest of his life gets revealed. I honestly can't wait for that to happen because I love characters like King. The little ball of energy and funness. Not to mention the shenanigans he gets himself into when Ida and Luz are doing stuff. It's what makes him so special, and I hope to see more of him in action in the near future. You see, it's characters like this that really makes me love the Owl House. I mean, I love the story, the adventures, and the overall show. Not to mention I love the creativity that was put into the characters and how they were portrayed into the show. Everyone is active, everyone has a big role to play, which is something you don't always see in cartoons. There's also the fact that there are some stuff from the real world they put in the show, like little fun Easter eggs like Dragon Ball Z and a solid snake body pillow, which honestly is really funny. Not to mention the stuff that Luz says.
Oh, happy dagger, give me death! Now for the final anatomically correct touch, spider breath. You think that's an impressive trick? Take a look at this. Bleep, bloop, bleep.
It's really funny and lovable, and I hope they do more of this in the show that keeps going. One thing that's very notable about the show is the visuals. Now, I'm not talking about how it looks always. Yes, it does look good and it has this very bright and colorful feel, but sometimes in a few episodes, the visuals and smooth-like animation of the show would go from a 5 to a straight 10. What I mean is that the frames of the animation would go from like 30 FPS to 60, and the visuals will look much more better than before. When stuff like this happens in the show, it usually showing this moment of importance, or it's when two people amazing are fighting. This does not happen always, but only a few times with between the 2 seasons in total. I have never seen cartoons do this. There's only one other cartoon I'd seen that does this sort of animation and visual change, and that was in the season 2 finale of Amphibia. The finale of season 2 was a big one for the show, and I had never seen something like this happen in any cartoon show, so it shocked me, and I guess it shocked a lot of people too. If this type of animation is in the near future of how animated shows are going to be like, I for one cannot wait for new shows that follow the footsteps of shows like the Owl House and the Amphibia. The overall music is fine. The intro and the ending music theme are probably the only iconic music of the show. There are some times when the music plays a big theme in the episode, and it's much more noticeable then than before. Times like that happen mostly in episodes that show some sort of importance, which I guess is cool. The Owl House has this amazing potential that keeps expanding as the show continues. But I feel like it's time to talk more about the behind the scenes and how the show did well in the real world. But before we continue on, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Watching and liking this video really helps my video get out there, and YouTube can push it out to more people. And subscribing really helps me personally, trying to hit that 1,000 subscriber milestone. So if you could like and subscribe, that would really be awesome. Anyway, now back to the video. Now, one thing I want to bring up is the fact that the big 3 cartoons that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and the Owl House creators, actually acknowledge each other very well. As a matter of fact, the community of these shows would have these theories that these 3 shows are in some way connected in the same multiverse universe. And I know theories like this are a bit out there, seeing how their show's stories are completely different, not to mention on a visual level. But over time, the creators of these shows would throw in little Easter eggs or even similar characters that portray other characters for those shows, making theories like this actually true. I mean, the Owl House was shown in Amphibia, and in Amphibia, characters from Gravity Falls were shown in the show, but in some weird frog-shaped form. It's scenarios and theories like this is what make communities strong, and I'm glad that the Owl House community is one of them. Before the show even aired a few episodes, the concept of this show sounded very intriguing, and just based off the concept of the show, a community of the Owl House was created. The community seemed to be fine. It was not toxic crazy based on other communities I had seen. There are only a few times though when the Owl House community was actually really active. One time is when episode 16 of season 1 aired. This episode is where the first romance ship happened between Luz and Amity. Now this was actually a pretty big thing, seeing how this was not only the first real romance of the show, but also the fact that the couple was actually gay. There are not really any shows that I've seen in cartoon form that is connected to Disney that have this sort of gay couple relationship. So this was a pretty big thing. Not to mention, it was something that the fans really wanted and enjoyed. The show did not really portray romance that much, so stuff like this was really nice and something that everyone really enjoyed. Even me. The other time the community was really active is when the Owl House season 1 ended. See, the story of the show was far from over, and fans were waiting for season 2 to come out. But then some news came out about the show that complicated a few things. You see, the Owl House was actually planning to do a season 3 of the show, as great as that is, but season 3 would be different. Now this is old news to any friend who's been watching and listening to the news of the Owl House. And there are better videos that do explain the situation much more better. But for season 3, there would be 3 special 44-minute episodes instead of the regular, or rather traditional, 20 episode season run. This was actually pretty bad because of the fact that in some way the story of the Owl House would be cut or rushed, which if you know fans, they did not take that news lightly. The creator of the show, Dinah Terrence, made a statement on Reddit explaining the situation. She basically explained that Disney just dropped this news onto her and there was nothing that she could really do about it. Disney didn't really give her a proper explanation to the reason of why they're doing this, but yeah, it just happened. There were many theories to why Disney did this. One could be the fact that the whole Disney brand situation. See, Owl House was actually either altered or banned in a few countries due to the whole gay romance between Amity and Luz, which is honestly messed up. I mean, it's 2022. Another theory is the fact of budget cuts, which is kind of weird to think because of how the animation is smooth and even smoother in some episodes that mean of importance or really cool fight scenes. Dinah basically explained the best of her knowledge to why this show was going to be cut like this. Once again, if you guys want to get a better understanding of the situation, check out videos like this because they explain the situation much more better than me. That's for sure. Really hope this show has an ending that satisfies everyone. Everything is explained and there's no more questions to be asked about the show when it ends. I hope it does not pull a Star vs. the Force of Evil and just end abruptly. The end for that show was just had this cliffhanger that left everyone unhappy or unsatisfied. Well, to be honest, the show was starting to flop around the final season. Makes sense the season finale would just fill you with more questions. I hope that does not happen for the Owl House though. Seeing how the latest episode for me right now is season 2 episode 16, which means that there's only a few more episodes until the season finale of season 2. And who knows when season 3 is going to come out since it's only 3 episodes long. But overall, without the situation, the cartoon series is really good. They managed to direct the show to kids, teens, and even adults. And that's something that I really love about this show like this. The fact that there's jokes for everyone and there's a very compelling story next to it. Season 2 is definitely much more darker than season 1, but that's something I feel was needed for this show. Remember, the Owl House is not your typical Disney Channel show. It's something much more greater than that. So if you've not seen the show, I definitely recommend it. It will take some time for the story to get good and for you to seek that connection with the show, but I'm sure after you've seen this video, you will be open to watch it and give it a chance. There will be moments you hate and there will be moments you love, but if you enjoyed the show, that's all that mattered. And I hope this video gave you guys a better understanding of the Owl House and what's it all about. But overall, that's the video guys. Before you go, once again, if you guys could like the video and subscribe to the channel. I really worked hard in this video and I really want to do YouTube as a full-time thing. So if you guys can do those things, it can really help me and I can make longer videos on topics that you guys, the audience, want. I do topics surrounding around video games, anime, manga, animated, and live action shows. You guys name it. But yeah, that's it guys, that's the video. Like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next time. Bye bye.